Morning, Abotai. Now that we're in Aseret Yemei Teshuva, those who don't feel well, have chronic illnesses, and may have an issue fasting on Yom Kippur should start doing their due diligence now and speaking to their doctors and poskim to figure out how to conduct themselves on Yom Kippur. Don't wait for the last minute. Now is the time to do so. So that's with regards to that. We call these days Aseret Yemei Teshuva, which means that the mitzvah hayom is Teshuva. The Rambam in Ilchot Teshuva writes that if a person sins, it's a positive Torah commandment to confess one sin. The Torah says, "V'itvadu et avonam be'et avon avotam," which means it's a mitzvah to confess one's sins. That's one part of the teshuvah. It's interesting because this is a mitzvah that can only be fulfilled after a person has already done an avirah. Then he can confess a sin and be choser b'teshuvah. In the times that Beit HaMikdash kayam, a person, when he brought a chatat or asham, sin offerings in the Beit HaMikdash, he would have to confess his sin on top of the korban. Otherwise, if he didn't, the korban would be pasul. So that's with regards to that. So now, even though we don't have the korbanot anymore, but the mitzvah vidui we still have. Another component of teshuvah, the Rambam says, is harata, which is remorse. A person has to genuinely feel bad for rebelling against the Kadosh Baruch Hu through the avirah that he did. And then the third component, says the Rambam, is kabbalah ala atid, which means a person needs to make a commitment for the future, never again to do this avirah. I get this question many times, the poskim discuss it. When a person's choser b'teshuvah, in the back of his mind, all the way in his subconscious, he knows that chances are he's going to come back to the same sin. Look what happens every day. We do vidui 3 times a day. Every year we have another Yom Kippur, which means that we're doing the same avonot day in and day out, and year in and year out. Is the teshuvah worth anything if a person keeps on coming back to the avirot? And the answer is that ba'asher husham, at that moment, if a person truly accepts upon himself not to do it again, and he prays to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Hashem gives him the strength not to come back to that sin, the halacha is that's considered teshuvah. Unfortunately, if he comes back to the avirah, the teshuvah becomes undone, and then he has to do it again. You can't do real teshuvah if you keep on coming back to the avirah, but at that moment that you did teshuvah, it was complete teshuvah. Now, the Rambam actually writes that the fourth component, which is azivat hachet, which means next time you are tested with the same avirah, you have to overcome the urge, overcome the desire to do it, and stand back. Then the teshuvah is complete. Until a person's able to do that, the teshuvah is hanging in the balance. It's not 100% complete, but at the end of the day, it is still, a person would fulfill the mitzvah of teshuvah. Have a wonderful day.